Captain Sarah Chen's hands didn't shake anymore. 3 years since Kabul, 3 years since her team died in that blood-soaked extraction zone, and she'd finally found something resembling peace in the silence of an empty shooting range. The Tuesday afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows of the private facility outside Fredericksburg, Virginia, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. This was her therapy now, not the mandated sessions with the VA psychiatrist who kept asking how she felt about survivor's guilt, not the prescription bottles she'd thrown away after 6 months. Just her, a rifle, and the rhythmic discipline of breathing, aiming, firing. The targets didn't ask questions. They didn't offer sympathy. They just stood there, waiting to be hit. Her grouping was perfect. 5 shots, all within a 2-inch circle at 50 yards. Professional, mechanical. The kind of shooting that came from somewhere deeper than training, from that dark place where instinct and muscle memory lived, where the body remembered what the mind tried desperately to forget. She was lining up her 6th shot when the overhead screen flickered to life. Sarah froze. In 3 years of coming to this range, she'd never seen that screen turn on. It was old, probably installed in the 90s, more decoration than functional equipment. But now it glowed with an eerie green light, and text scrolled across the black display like something from a Cold War thriller. Call sign, Widow Mark Reactivated. Report to Langley Air Force Base. Authorization code, Broken Arrow Actual. The rifle slipped slightly in her grip. Widow Mark. That designation had been classified above top secret, a program so dark that even most of the intelligence community didn't know it existed. Special operations officers deployed alone, deep into hostile territory, tasked with missions that conventional teams couldn't touch. Assassination. Sabotage. Intelligence gathering in places where America officially had no presence. Sarah had been one of only 7 operators in the program. After Kabul, after watching her entire team get cut down in an ambush that should never have happened, she'd requested immediate discharge. They'd let her walk away without argument, which should have been her first warning that something was wrong. The military never let go of assets that valuable without a fight. She'd assumed they'd buried the program, burned the files, erased it from history like so many other black operations that went sideways. Apparently she'd assumed wrong. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She stared at it for 3 long rings before answering, already knowing who it would be. Captain Chen. The voice was familiar, though she hadn't heard it in years. Colonel Marcus Wade, her former handler, the man who'd recruited her into Widow Mark, who'd sent her on missions that still haunted her sleep. I know what you're thinking. The program's been dead for 3 years. It should stay dead, Sarah said, her voice flat. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, feel the adrenaline starting to flood her system, the body's preparation for fight or flight, a response she'd thought she'd finally gotten under control. Respectfully, Captain, I agree, but something's changed. We have a situation that requires your specific skill set, and there's no time for the usual protocol. I need you at Langley Air Force Base in 6 hours. I'm retired, Colonel. Are you? Wade's voice carried a weight that made Sarah's stomach clench. Because from where I'm standing, people like you don't retire. You just wait for the next war to find you, and this one already has. Sarah closed her eyes. Through the phone, she could hear background noise, voices, the beep of secure communications equipment, the organized chaos of an operations center mobilizing. Whatever this was, it was happening now. Not a drill, not a hypothetical. What's the situation? She asked, hatting herself for taking the bait. Not over the phone, but I can tell you this, Alexei Volkov, former Spetsnaz GRU, now a freelance operator for the highest bidder. 6 months ago, he acquired classified intelligence on Widow Mark operations. Not just the mission parameters, names, safe houses, asset networks, everything. Sarah's blood went cold. That's impossible. The files were compartmentalized, encrypted. Someone talked. Wade interrupted. Someone on the inside. And now Volkov is selling that information to foreign intelligence services. 3 former Widow Mark operators have been killed in the last 8 weeks. Car accidents that weren't accidents. Home invasions that looked like random violence. Suicides that failed every psychological profile. Sarah, he's systematically eliminating everyone who wore that designation. And I'm next on his list. You're the last field operator still alive. The others were support staff, analysts, logistics. You're the only one left who actually ran missions, who knows how the program worked from the inside, which makes you either his final target, Wade paused, or his most valuable asset if he can flip you. That's not going to happen. I know. That's why I need you to help us stop him. Sarah, this isn't just about revenge or protection. If Volkov sells that intelligence, every ally who helped us in the field for the last decade is dead. Translators in Kandahar, informants in Damascus, village elders in Yemen who risked their families to give us information. Their blood will be on our hands. Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. She thought about Ahmed, the translator who'd guided her team through Helmand province. Maria, the doctor in Syria who'd sheltered her for 3 days while Russian patrols searched the city. Dozens of faces, dozens of names of people who'd believed America would protect them. How long do I have to decide? She asked. You don't, Wade said, and she could hear genuine regret in his voice. The plane leaves in 2 hours from Quantico. You're either on it or you spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have stopped this. Wondering whose death is on your conscience because you chose to stay retired. The line went dead. Sarah stood in the empty shooting range, the rifle still in her hands, the target downrange waiting for a shot she hadn't taken. 3 years. 3 years of trying to build a normal life, trying to convince herself that she could be something other than a weapon pointed at America's enemies. But Wade was right. She'd never really retired. She'd just been waiting. She set the rifle down carefully, methodically packing her gear with the automatic precision of years of training. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. And somewhere deep inside, in that dark place where the operator still lived, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Purpose. Outside, the Virginia afternoon was peaceful. Birds sang. Traffic hummed in the distance. The world kept turning, oblivious to the shadow wars fought in its name. Sarah Chen walked to her car, started the engine, and pointed it toward Quantico. Widow Mark was going back to war. The C-130 transport plane climbed through the darkening sky, its engines thrumming with a mechanical rhythm that Sarah had heard 1,000 times before. 6 hours after that phone call, she was airborne, heading toward something she'd sworn she'd never do again. The cargo bay was mostly empty except for her, a handful of sealed equipment crates, and 2 Air Force loadmasters who knew better than to ask questions. Sarah sat in the canvas jump seat, watching the last light of day disappear through the small porthole window. No commercial flight this time. No paper trail. Whatever waited for her at Langley was serious enough that they were moving her through military channels, invisible to civilian oversight. The plane touched down at Langley just after midnight. A black SUV was waiting on the tarmac, engine running, no markings. The driver, a young soldier who looked barely old enough to vote, handed her a tablet without making eye contact. Colonel Wade's compliments, ma'am, briefing materials. The meeting starts in 20 minutes. Sarah scrolled through the files as they drove through the base. What she saw made her pulse quicken despite her years of training in emotional control. Alexei Volkov, age 42, born in Vladivostok, recruited into Spetsnaz at 19, transferred to GRU Russian military intelligence at 25, decorated for operations in Chechnya, Georgia, Syria. Then 8 years ago he disappeared from official records, gone private, freelance. A ghost who sold his skills to whoever could meet his price. The photos showed a man who could disappear in any crowd. Average height, average build, forgettable features. But his eyes, cold, analytical, empty of anything resembling mercy, told the real story. This was a man who'd turned killing into an art form. The file detailed his suspected operations: assassinations in London, Vienna, Istanbul, intelligence gathering in Washington, Brussels, Tel Aviv, always one step ahead of counterintelligence, always leaving just enough evidence to be frustrating, never enough to be actionable. And now he had the Widow Mark files. The SUV pulled up to a hangar on the far edge of the airfield, one Sarah had never seen used before, the kind of building that didn't appear on official base maps, the kind of place where deniable operations were planned. Inside, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. The space was massive and hollow, with a single conference room constructed in the center like a glass cube floating in darkness. Through the transparent walls, Sarah could see 3 people waiting. Colonel Marcus Wade stood at the head of the table. He'd aged in 3 years, more gray in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But he still carried himself like a man who'd spent his life making decisions that kept other people alive, even when those decisions cost him sleep. Beside him stood a woman in civilian clothes with sharp, intelligent eyes and an FBI badge clipped to her belt. Mid-30s, Sarah guessed, the kind of person who noticed everything and forgot nothing. The third person was a younger man in navy dress blues with the trident of a seal on his chest. Broad-shouldered, quiet intensity radiating from him like heat from a fire. His eyes tracked Sarah as she entered, not threatening, just cataloging, assessing, the automatic evaluation of one operator meeting another. "Captain Chen, thank you for coming," Wade said, gesturing to a chair. "This is Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI Counterintelligence Division, and Lieutenant Commander James Reeves, DEVGRU." Sarah remained standing. "What's this about, Colonel? The real story, not the phone call version." Wade's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or resignation. He tapped a remote, and the screens around the room exploded with information. Satellite imagery, intercepted communications, surveillance photos, financial transactions traced through a maze of shell companies and cryptocurrency wallets, and in the center of it all faces, men and women Sarah recognized, some she'd worked with, some she'd trained, some she'd trusted with her life. All of them marked with red X's. 3 dead in the last 8 weeks, Agent Torres said, her voice crisp and professional. Captain James Morrison, found in his garage with the car running, carbon monoxide poisoning, ruled a suicide, but Morrison had just gotten engaged. No history of depression. Sarah's breath caught. Morrison had been her XO in Kabul, a good officer, a better friend. Torres continued, pulling up another file. Major Lisa Huang, killed in a car accident on I-95. Vehicle malfunction caused her to lose control at high speed, except the mechanic who inspected her car the week before swears the brakes were perfect. Another face, another red X. And Lieutenant David Palmer, shot during a home invasion in his apartment in Alexandria. Thieves took nothing, just executed him and left. No witnesses, no evidence, no leads. Sarah's hands clenched into fists under the table. "You said Morrison died. Colonel Wade told me he was the leak." Wade's expression hardened. That was incorrect intelligence, or rather deliberately misleading intelligence. Morrison isn't dead, Sarah. He's the leak. And everything that's happened since, the killings, the intelligence sales, the systematic dismantling of Widow Mark, it all traces back to him. The room spun slightly. Sarah gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. "That's impossible. Morrison would never." "Morrison was captured in Kabul," Commander Reeves interrupted, his voice quiet but carrying an edge like a blade. "After the extraction went sideways, after your team was hit. He didn't die in that ambush, Captain Chen. He was taken. held by Russian intelligence for 2 years before they traded him back in a prisoner exchange that never made the news. Sarah's mind raced back to that day. The chaos, the gunfire, bodies falling. She'd seen Morrison go down, seen the blood, assumed he was dead like the others. They'd told her he was dead. The after-action reports confirmed it. When he came back, he was different, Wade said quietly. The psychological evaluations showed trauma, PTSD, the expected damage from 2 years of captivity and interrogation. But they missed something, or he hid it well enough that even the experts couldn't see it. Tors pulled up a new set of files. 6 months ago, Morrison made contact with Alexei Volkov. We have intercepts, surveillance, financial transactions. He's been feeding Volkov everything: operational protocols, asset identities, safe house locations. Every piece of intelligence that made Widow Mark effective, he sold. Why? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Why would he do this? We don't know, Wade admitted. Maybe they turned him in captivity. Maybe he blames us for leaving him behind, for not knowing he was alive. Maybe he just broke and this is how it manifested. But the why doesn't matter as much as the what. He's helping Volkov systematically dismantle everything we built. And you, Captain Chen, are the final target. Reeves leaned forward, his fingers interlaced on the table. Volkov sent a message through a cutout 3 days ago. Very specific, very clear, he said. Send Widow Mark or I execute an asset every 24 hours until she comes. He wants you, Captain. This isn't just business for him. He's making it personal. Sarah looked at the faces on the screen. The red X's marking the dead. The photos of Morrison, her friend, her partner, the man who'd saved her life in Fallujah, now marked as a traitor. Where is he? She asked. Berlin, Tors said, pulling up a map. Both of them, Volkov and Morrison. They're arranging a sale, the final package of Widow Mark intelligence. Names of every asset we've run in the last 15 years. If that information hits the market, we're looking at hundreds of deaths. Maybe thousands when you factor in families and associates. When's the sale? 48 hours, Wade said. We have intelligence that the exchange is happening at the Tiergarten Park. Dead drop protocol, multiple cutouts, classic tradecraft. Sarah studied the operational plan on the screen. Surveillance positions, extraction routes, contingencies. It was solid work, professional, but something felt wrong. If you know where and when, why do you need me? Send a tactical team. Grab them both. Because Volkov knows we're coming, Reeves said. He's too smart not to. This whole thing, the message, the deadline, the public location, it's theater. He's drawing us out, testing our response. And if we send a conventional team, he'll see them coming and disappear. Again. Wade's eyes locked on Sarah's. But if we send you, someone he specifically asked for, someone Morrison knows intimately, we might get close enough to actually grab him. You're the bait, Sarah, and you're the trap. The question is whether you're willing to be both. Sarah looked at the faces of the dead, thought about the living assets whose names were in Morrison's files, thought about the people who'd trusted America to protect them, who'd risked everything because they believed the promise that we took care of our own. She thought about Morrison, about the man he'd been, about what he'd become. I'm in, she said. When do we leave? Wade checked his watch. The plane to Ramstein leaves in 90 minutes. You'll be on the ground in Berlin by tomorrow afternoon. We'll have support in place, Reeves and his team for tactical backup, Tors for intelligence coordination. But Sarah, he paused, and she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Doubt. Morrison knows you better than anyone. He knows how you think, how you operate, every tactic and strategy. He'll anticipate your moves before you make them. Good, Sarah said, standing. Then he'll think he's in control, right up until the moment he realizes he's not. She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Colonel, one question. Why didn't you tell me Morrison was alive? Why let me believe he died in Kabul? Wade's expression was unreadable. Because we weren't sure he was compromised. and we needed to see if he'd make contact with former team members. If you'd known he was alive, you would have tried to find him, and that would have tipped him off that we were watching. So I was an asset to be managed, not a person to be trusted. In this business, Captain, sometimes there's no difference. Sarah nodded slowly. Then we understand each other perfectly, Colonel. I'll stop Volkov and Morrison, but after this is done, Widow Mark stays dead, and so does my connection to it. We're clear. Crystal, Wade said. Sarah walked out into the cold Virginia night, heading toward a war she'd thought was over. Behind her, through the glass walls of the conference room, 3 people watched her go. She's going to get herself killed, Torres said quietly. Maybe, Reeves replied. Or maybe she's the only one dangerous enough to actually pull this off. Wade said nothing. He just watched Sarah Chen disappear into the darkness and wondered if he just sent the last Widow Mark operator to her death. Or to her redemption. The C-17 Globemaster touched down at Ramstein Air Base in Germany just after midnight local time. Sarah hadn't slept during the 8-hour flight. She'd spent the time reviewing files, memorizing faces, studying the layout of Berlin until she could navigate it blindfolded. Commander Reeves sat across from her, cleaning his sidearm with methodical precision. Agent Torres worked on her laptop, coordinating with German BND intelligence and establishing the surveillance network they'd need. Nobody spoke much. There wasn't much to say. They all knew what was waiting in Berlin, a ghost who'd killed dozens and a traitor who knew Sarah's every weakness. From Ramstein, a black Mercedes SUV with diplomatic plates ferried them northwest toward Berlin. The German Autobahn was nearly empty at this hour, just long-haul trucks and the occasional sports car blurring past at speeds that would be illegal anywhere else. Sarah watched the landscape roll by, dark forests, small villages, the industrial heart of Europe sleeping under a moonless sky. They reached Berlin as dawn was breaking. The city emerged from the darkness like something from a dream, modern glass towers rising beside pre-war architecture, the scars of history visible in the contrast between east and west. The wall was gone, but the divisions it had created still echoed through the streets. The safe house was in Kreuzberg, a neighborhood that had once been the punk rock heart of West Berlin and was now slowly gentrifying into coffee shops and art galleries. The building itself was unremarkable, a renovated apartment block that looked like student housing but had reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, and enough surveillance equipment to monitor half the city. Inside, the team set up shop. Reeves positioned his 4 SEALs, operators from DEVGRU who'd flown in separately, each with covers as businessmen or tourists. Torres established a command center in the living room, multiple screens showing feeds from cameras positioned throughout the Tiergarten. Sarah studied the park's layout one more time. The Tiergarten was massive, 520 acres of woods and meadows in the heart of Berlin, bigger than Central Park. Monuments, memorials, winding paths, hidden clearings. 1,000 places to hide. 1,000 places for an ambush. The intelligence says the drop happens at the Victory Column, Torres said, pointing to a tall monument topped with a golden statue. 1800 hours. Volkov deposits the package, walks away. The buyer picks it up 3 minutes later. Too exposed, Reeves said immediately. The column sits in the middle of a traffic circle. No cover, no concealment. If we position teams there, Volkov will spot them immediately. Unless we don't position teams there, Sarah said quietly. Both of them turned to look at her. Volkov's too careful. This isn't about the drop. It's about drawing us out, seeing who we send, how we react. He'll have counter-surveillance everywhere. Cameras, spotters, maybe even his own tactical team as backup. So what do you suggest? Torres asked. Sarah traced a route on the map with her finger. We let the drop happen. We don't try to intercept Volkov at all. Instead, we identify the buyer and follow them. Volkov's careful, but buyers are often sloppy. They're not trained operators. They're intelligence officers or middlemen who think money makes them safe. Reeves nodded slowly. Follow the buyer back to whoever hired them. Get the bigger picture. Exactly, and there's something else. Sarah pulled up one of the intercepted communications. This message from Volkov mentions analog confirmation. In Syria, when we were tracking Russian advisors, they always used physical signals for final confirmation, something that couldn't be intercepted electronically. A newspaper folded a certain way, a chalk mark, an object placed in a specific location. So we look for the signal, Torres said, understanding lighting her eyes. Find out what it is, and we know where the real exchange happens. It's risky, Reeves said. If we're wrong, if the victory column drop is real, we lose our chance. We're already taking risks, Sarah said. The question is whether we take smart ones or stupid ones. The decision was made. For the next 20 hours they prepared. Sarah walked the Tiergarten 3 times, once in morning light, once at midday, once as the sun was setting. She memorized every path, every statue, every bench. She noted where cameras could be hidden, where a spotter might position themselves, which routes offered the best escape. She also felt the weight of eyes on her. Not paranoia, training. Instinct. Someone was watching the watchers. Volkov or his people, cataloging their surveillance, understanding their capabilities. Good, Sarah thought. Let him watch. Let him think he's in control. As evening approached on the day of the drop, Sarah took her position on a bench near the victory column. She wore a dark wig, horn-rimmed glasses, carried a paperback novel in Russian. Just another expat enjoying the mild evening. Around her, the park filled with joggers, dog walkers, tourists taking photos. Normal life, oblivious to the shadow war about to unfold. Reeves and his team were positioned at key points, 2 near the S-Bahn station, 1 at the cafe on the park's eastern edge, 1 on a bicycle making slow circuits. Torres was in a van 3 blocks away, monitoring everything through the surveillance network. 1700 hours. 1800 was approaching fast. Then Sarah saw him. Alexei Volkov moved through the crowd like water finding its path, unremarkable, invisible, perfectly average. He wore jeans, a light jacket, carried a messenger bag like 1,000 other Berliners. But Sarah had hunted men like him. She knew how to see what others missed. The way his eyes tracked reflective surfaces to check for followers, the slight bulge under his left arm where a weapon would rest, the economy of movement that came from years of training. He approached the victory column, paused at a trash receptacle near its base, deposited something wrapped in newspaper, then walked on without breaking stride. Sarah keyed her mic, voice barely above a whisper. Target confirmed. Package deposited. He's heading northwest toward the lake. Copy, Reeves responded, maintaining observation. 3 minutes passed. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, but her breathing stayed controlled. Years of training, forcing her body to override the adrenaline response. Then a woman in a business suit, black skirt, white blouse, expensive handbag, approached the trash can. She deposited her own garbage, but as she did, her hand dipped in and retrieved the newspaper-wrapped package. Smooth, professional, over in seconds. Buyer acquired, Sarah transmitted. Female 30s business attire moving east. I have her on camera, Torres confirmed. Facial recognition running now. But Sarah's attention was no longer on the buyer, because as she stood to follow, her eyes swept the crowd and locked on Volkov. He'd stopped 50 yards away, turned, and he was looking directly at her. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, they stared at each other across the busy park. Sarah saw recognition in his eyes, not surprise. He'd known she was here, expected it, maybe even arranged it. And then he smiled, cold, knowing, the smile of a chess player who just forced his opponent into an impossible position. Then he ran. Target is moving, Sarah shouted into her mic, already sprinting. All units, Volkov is running northwest. Reeves cut him off. She vaulted a park bench, dodged a family with a stroller, her hand instinctively moving toward the Glock 19 concealed beneath her jacket. Ahead, Volkov moved with the fluid grace of a man half his age, weaving through pedestrians, using the terrain like he'd memorized it. Because he had, Sarah realized, he'd planned this every step, every turn. He cut left toward the canal and Sarah followed, her lungs burning. 3 years of desk work and shooting ranges no match for a lifetime of operational fitness. But she pushed through, ignoring the pain, focusing on the target. Volkov rounded a monument, some Prussian general on a horse, and Sarah followed half a second later. He'd stopped, standing 20 feet away, hands visible and empty, completely calm. Behind him, the canal reflected the dying light. Around them, the park had suddenly become very empty, too empty. "Captain Chen," he said in English, his accent slight but unmistakable. "The legendary Widow Mark. I wondered if Colonel Wade would have the courage to send you. I am pleased he did." Sarah's weapon came up, centered on his chest. Her finger rested on the trigger exactly as she'd been trained. "On your knees, hands behind your head, now." Volkov didn't move. "If I wanted you dead, Captain, you would already be dead. The building to your left, 4th floor window. Sniper. He has had you in his sights since you entered the park. The trees behind you, 2 more of my people. The bridge to your right, 1 more. You are, how do you Americans say it, in a kill box." Sarah's tactical awareness blazed to life. She didn't look, didn't break eye contact, but her peripheral vision confirmed movement in the trees. A glint of glass from the building. Her mind calculated angles, cover, survival probability. Nearly 0. "Reeves," she said quietly into her mic. "I've got multiple hostiles. 4th floor, building west, trees at my 6, bridge at 3 o'clock. Copy, moving to engage." Reeves' voice was calm, professional, but Sarah could hear him running. Volkov tilted his head, studying her. "Your team is very good, Captain, better than most, but they are chasing shadows. The buyer you saw, she is what you call a decoy. The real exchange happened 1 hour ago, delivered through the Russian embassy. Diplomatic immunity, untouchable. The information is already on a plane to Moscow." Sarah's finger tensed on the trigger. "You're lying." "Am I?" Volkov's expression didn't change. "Your safe house, the one in Kreuzberg, how many people are there right now? 3, 4. Perhaps you should check on them." Ice flooded Sarah's veins. "Tor's status report." "Static." "Tors, respond immediately." More static than the sound of gunfire, automatic weapons, shouting. A scream cut short. "Safe house is compromised." A voice she didn't recognize, one of Reeves' SEALs. "Multiple hostiles breaching. We're taking heavy." The transmission dissolved into static and the sound of explosions. Volkov watched Sarah's face, reading every micro-expression. "You should go help them, Captain. They are dying while you point a gun at me. As for me, I will still be in Berlin tomorrow, and the day after. We are not finished, you and I. This is merely the opening move of a very long game." Every instinct Sarah had screamed at her to pull the trigger. End it. 1 shot. Center mass. Drop him and deal with the consequences. But if he was telling the truth about the safe house, Tors and the others were fighting for their lives right now. Every second she spent here was a second they didn't have. "This isn't over," Sarah said, her voice like iron. "No," Volkov agreed, his smile widening slightly. "It is just beginning. Give my regards to Captain Morrison when you see him. Tell him I said, checkmate." Sarah ran, sprinting back through the park, her mind racing. Morrison. Volkov had mentioned Morrison, which meant her former XO wasn't just a traitor, he was here. In Berlin. Possibly at the safe house right now. Behind her, Alexei Volkov watched her go, then pulled out his phone and dialed. "It's done," he said in Russian. "She took the bait. Widow Mark is exactly as predictable as you said she would be." On the other end of the line, Captain David Morrison smiled in the darkness of the Kreuzberg safe house. stepping over the body of a SEAL he'd just killed. "Then let's finish this," Morrison said. "It's time Sarah learned the truth about what really happened in Kabul." Sarah's lungs burned as she sprinted through Berlin's streets, the Glock 19 now in her hand, safety off, finger alongside the trigger guard. The safe house was 12 blocks away, 12 blocks that might as well have been 12 miles. Behind her, she could hear Reeves and his team running, boots pounding pavement, radio chatter crackling through her earpiece. "All units converging on safe house," Reeves transmitted, his voice steady despite the exertion. "ETA 3 minutes." 3 minutes, an eternity in a firefight. Sarah rounded a corner onto their street in Kreuzberg and immediately assessed the tactical situation. 2 bodies on the sidewalk, civilians, caught in crossfire, blood pooling on the concrete. The safe house's windows were shattered, bullet holes stitching across the brick facade like a deadly constellation. A van was parked at an angle, doors open, engine running. Extraction vehicle. No active gunfire. The silence was worse than the shooting. Sarah approached low and fast, using parked cars for cover. She could smell cordite and something else, the copper tang of blood. Behind her, Reeves materialized like a ghost, his HK-416 rifle up and ready, 2 of his SEALs flanking. "Windows," Sarah whispered, pointing. "Sniper positions eliminated. They came in hard and fast." "Professional breach," Reeves confirmed, reading the scene. "Flashbangs, coordinated entry, military precision. This wasn't hired muscle, this was operators." They breached through the front door, already kicked off its hinges. Inside was a war zone. The surveillance equipment was smashed, monitors shattered, cables torn from walls. Shell casings littered the floor, 9mm and 5.56mm, firefight at close quarters. And blood, too much blood. Sarah moved through the apartment with practiced efficiency, clearing corners, checking angles. Living room clear, kitchen clear, bedroom. Agent Rebecca Torres sat against the wall, pressing a field dressing to her shoulder. Her service weapon lay beside her, slide locked back, magazine empty. Her eyes were glassy with pain and shock, but she was alive. "Torres," Sarah dropped beside her, assessing the wound. Through and through, missing the major arteries. Painful but survivable if they got her medical attention fast. "They knew," Torres gasped, her voice ragged. "They knew exactly where everything was. Disabled our comms first, then flashbangs through every entry point simultaneously. I got 2 of them before," she winced. "Where's Chen? Where's Rodriguez?" Sarah's blood went cold. Chen and Rodriguez were Reeves SEALs, left behind to secure the safe house while the team deployed to the Tiergarten. Reeves was already moving through the apartment, checking rooms. Sarah heard his sharp intake of breath from the back bedroom. She found him standing over 2 bodies, both SEALs, both shot execution style, single rounds to the back of the head, professional, clinical, the kind of kills that spoke of someone who'd done this before. "Got him," Reeves whispered, his jaw clenched so tight Sarah could see the muscles jumping. Chen served 3 tours. Rodriguez had a wife and a daughter, 2 years old. Sarah's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message, personal, vicious. "Captain," one of Reeves' remaining SEALs, Carlson Hammer, appeared in the doorway. "You need to see this." He led them to the command center. Amid the destruction, 1 monitor had been left intact, deliberately, and on the screen, a video file was playing on loop. Captain David Morrison's face filled the screen. He looked older than Sarah remembered, harder. His eyes held something she'd never seen before, a cold fury that had calcified into something worse than hate, contempt. "Hello, Sarah," Morrison's recorded voice said. "I knew they'd send you. Wade's predictable that way. By the time you see this, you'll know the safe house was a trap. You'll be standing over the bodies of good soldiers who died because you fell for the oldest trick in the book, divide and distract." Sarah's fingernails dug into her palms. Morrison continued, his voice eerily calm. "But I want you to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This isn't even about the money, though Volkov pays exceptionally well. This is about truth, about making you see what I saw during those 2 years in a Russian prison cell. He leaned closer to the camera. Kabul wasn't bad intelligence, Sarah. It was a setup. Our entire team was sacrificed for a political operation. I have proof, classified communications, orders from the top. They knew the compound was a trap. They sent us anyway because the election was in 3 weeks and the administration needed a counterterrorism victory for the news cycle. Sarah's mind reeled. He's lying, she said, but her voice sounded uncertain even to herself. Am I? Morrison's image seemed to stare directly at her. Check the files I've uploaded to the server in this room. Every cable, every order, every memo, you'll see I'm right. Admiral Hendricks, Senator Patterson, Deputy Director Marsh. They murdered our team for polling numbers. The screen flickered, showing documents, official letterhead, classified stamps, emails discussing acceptable casualties and media impact. Jesus Christ, Torres breathed. It gets worse, Morrison continued. When I came back, when the Russians traded me in that prisoner exchange, I tried to tell the truth, tried to expose what happened. And you know what they did? They buried it, classified it beyond top secret, threatened me with treason charges if I talked. They made me complicit in the murder of my own team. His expression hardened. So yes, Sarah, I'm working with Volkov. I'm selling every secret I know. I'm burning down the entire rotten system, and you're going to help me whether you want to or not. Never, Sarah whispered to the screen. Morrison smiled like he'd heard her. You say that now, but I know you, Sarah, better than anyone. I know you'd rather die than live with a lie, so I'm giving you a choice. Join me. Help me expose the people who betrayed us, or keep protecting them and watch as everyone you care about dies one by one. The screen went black, then showed an address in Berlin, a warehouse in the industrial district. Come find me, Sarah. Come see the truth. You have 12 hours before I release everything to WikiLeaks, the Times, and every foreign intelligence service on Earth. After that, every American agent, every asset, every operation is compromised. Thousands dead, and it'll be your fault for not stopping me. The video ended. The room was silent, except for Tor's labored breathing and the distant sound of police sirens approaching. Reeves looked at Sarah. It's another trap, obviously. He wants you to come alone, emotional, angry. He'll have 50 different ways to kill you. I know, Sarah said quietly. The documents could be fabricated, Tor said, though she didn't sound convinced. Deepfakes, forgeries. Morrison's been compromised for years. Nothing he says is trustworthy. I know that too. But Sarah was already pulling up the files Morrison had mentioned. Her hands moved across the keyboard, accessing the server. The documents appeared on screen: emails, memos, operational orders, all bearing the proper classification markings, the correct formatting, the authentic digital signatures. One email in particular made her stomach drop. It was from Deputy Director Marsh to Admiral Hendricks, dated 3 days before the Kabul operation. The Kabul strike provides optimal media optics despite the increased risk factor. Authorization to proceed with acceptable casualty threshold up to 75%. Post-mission narrative already prepared for press release. Acceptable casualty threshold. Her team had been an acceptable casualty. Sarah, Reeves' voice cut through her thoughts. Even if some of this is real, it doesn't justify what Morrison's done. He's killed innocents, sold secrets, he's a traitor. I know, Sarah said for the 3rd time, but her voice was hollow. She thought about her team, about watching them die in that Kabul compound, about carrying that guilt for 3 years, believing it was her fault for not being fast enough, smart enough, good enough. What if it hadn't been her fault at all? What if they'd been murdered by their own government? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Morrison's voice was live this time, not recorded. You've seen the files. I've seen documents that could be fabricated, Sarah said coldly. Could be but aren't, you know that, Sarah. I can hear it in your voice. You're already doubting, already questioning. That's good. That's the first step. The first step to what? To understanding that we're on the same side. We always were. The enemy isn't Volkov, Sarah. It's the people who sent us to die and then lied about it. Come to the warehouse. Let me show you everything. Then decide. So you can kill me like you killed Chen and Rodriguez. Morrison's voice turned hard. I didn't want that. Volkov's people got overeager, but you need to understand there will be more casualties before this is over. The question is whether they're on our side or theirs. Choose quickly, Sarah. The clock is ticking. The line went dead. Sarah stood in the destroyed safe house, surrounded by the bodies of men who'd trusted her, holding a phone that connected her to a traitor who might be telling the truth. Reeves watched her carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Sarah said slowly, that Morrison's right about one thing. This ends tonight, one way or another. She checked her weapon, reloaded, and walked toward the door. Sarah, wait. I'm not going alone, she said, but I am going. You can back me up or you can report to Wade, your choice. Reeves looked at his remaining SEALs, then at Torres bleeding against the wall, then at the bodies of his men. Lock and load, he told his team. We're going to a warehouse. Warehouse Morrison had designated was in Berlin's Lichtenberg district, a post-industrial wasteland of abandoned factories and empty lots where the wall had once divided the city. Sarah studied the satellite imagery on Tor's tablet as the medics loaded the wounded FBI agent into an ambulance. It's too open, Reeves said, zooming in on the approach routes. Single-access road. Clear sight lines in every direction. If Morrison wants to kill you, this is the perfect place. He doesn't want to kill me, Sarah said. Not yet. He wants to convert me, convince me he's right. And if he is right about Kabul? Sarah's jaw tightened. Then I'll deal with that after we stop him from selling state secrets to our enemies. But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. The documents had looked authentic. The email from Deputy Director Marsh about acceptable casualties had the bureaucratic callousness that rang true. And Morrison, whatever he'd become, had never been a liar. Wade's voice crackled through the secure channel. Chen Sitrep. Safe house compromised. 2 KIA. Tor's wounded but stable. Morrison left a message and a location. We're moving to engage. Negative. I'm ordering you to stand down. This is exactly what they want. You, angry and emotional, walking into a kill zone. We'll send a tactical team. With respect, Colonel, by the time your tactical team gets authorization and crosses half of Europe, Morrison will have released everything. We have 12 hours, maybe less. Silence on the line. Then, the documents he showed you about Kabul, are they real? I don't know, sir. That's what I'm going to find out. Another pause. Sarah, if those documents are genuine, there are people in very high places who will do anything to keep them buried. People with resources that make Volkov look like a street thug. You understand what I'm saying? You're saying I might be disposable if I learn too much. I'm saying be careful who you trust, including me. The line went dead. Sarah looked at Reeves. Last chance to walk away. This is my mission, my past, my mess. Reeves checked his rifle, chambered around. Rodriguez was my friend. Chen was my teammate. I don't walk away. His remaining 2 SEALs, Hammer and a quiet operator called Frost, nodded agreement. Then let's finish this, Sarah said. They approached the warehouse at 200 hours. The streets were empty, sodium lights casting everything in sickly orange. The building loomed against the night sky, 4 stories of concrete and broken windows, graffiti covering the lower levels like war paint. Thermal imaging shows 3 heat signatures inside, Frost reported from his position. Main floor, no movement. 3, Sarah frowned. Morrison, Volkov, and who? Maybe another hostage, Hammer suggested. Leverage. Sarah's earpiece crackled. Morrison's voice. I know you're out there, Sarah. I can see your team on my monitors, very professional, but you're wasting time. Come inside. Alone. Or I start sending pieces of my guest to the German police. A scream echoed from inside the warehouse. Female, terrified. Son of a bitch, Reeves hissed. He's got a hostage. Sarah was already moving. Cover the exits. If Volkov tries to run, drop him. Sarah, wait. But she was through the door, weapon up, moving through the darkness with the night vision goggles Frost had given her. The warehouse interior was a maze of rusted machinery and empty pallets. Water dripped somewhere. Pigeons fluttered in the rafters. And in the center, under a single work light, sat Captain David Morrison. He looked exactly as Sarah remembered and nothing like him at all. Same face, same build, but something fundamental had changed. His eyes held an emptiness that made Sarah's skin crawl. Beside him, tied to a chair, was a woman Sarah didn't recognize. Mid-20s, blonde, terrified. A gag in her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Who is she? Sarah demanded, her weapon trained on Morrison. Nobody, Morrison said calmly. A secretary from the Russian embassy. Wrong place, wrong time, but she serves a purpose. She got you in here. Let her go. After we talk. Morrison stood slowly, hands visible. You've seen the files. Tell me you don't believe them. Sarah's finger rested on the trigger. I believe documents can be fabricated. I believe you've been compromised. And I believe you're a traitor who's killed American service members. I killed soldiers who were protecting a lie, Morrison corrected. The same lie that got our team murdered. Sarah, I know this is hard. I know you want to believe the system works, that the people giving orders have our best interests at heart. But Kabul proved that's fantasy. Even if you're right about Kabul, and I'm not saying you are, that doesn't justify selling intelligence to foreign governments. You've put thousands of assets at risk. Morrison's expression hardened. Those assets are part of the same corrupt system. They enable wars based on lies, regime changes for oil, torture programs dressed up as enhanced interrogation. The whole apparatus is rotten, Sarah. I'm just burning it down so something better can grow. By working with Volkov, a Russian operator who kills for money. Volkov is honest about what he is. That's more than I can say for Wade, for Marsh, for any of them. Morrison took a step closer. Join me, Sarah. Help me expose the truth. We can bring down the people who murdered our team. Make them pay. Make it mean something. Sarah's mind raced. Every tactical instinct said shoot him, end it. But something Morrison had said nagged at her. The documents had been too detailed, too specific. And Wade's warning, be careful who you trust, including me, echoed in her thoughts. Where's Volkov? She asked. Morrison smiled. Closer than you think. The lights went out. Muzzle flashes erupted in the darkness. Sarah Dove left, rolled, came up firing at where Morrison had been standing. But he was gone, the chair empty, the hostage screaming through her gag. Contact, Reeves' voice shouted through the earpiece. Multiple hostiles outside, it's an ambush. Automatic weapons fire echoed from outside. Explosions. The distinctive crack of Reeves' rifle returning fire. Sarah ripped off the night vision. It was useless with all the muzzle flashes. She moved by feel and memory, heading toward where the hostage had been. Found the woman still tied to the chair, grabbed her, started dragging her toward the exit. A figure materialized from the shadows. Volkov. His weapon was pointed at Sarah's head. Drop the gun, Captain Chen. Sarah froze. She could feel Volkov's aim, steady and professional, 15 feet away, too far to rush, too close to miss. The hostage, Sarah said. Let me get her out. She is not a hostage, she is GRU, one of mine. Volkov's smile was visible even in the darkness. You walked into a trap designed by two men who know you better than you know yourself. Morrison understands your tactics. I understand your psychology. Together, we are unstoppable. Then why haven't you killed me? Because Morrison believes you can be turned. Personally, I am less optimistic, but he has earned the right to try. Morrison's voice came from behind her. It's over, Sarah. Your team outside is pinned down. You're surrounded, but this doesn't have to end with your death. Work with us. Help us expose the truth about Kabul, about all of it. Sarah's mind calculated angles, probabilities, survival odds, all near zero. But then she heard something. A sound so faint she almost missed it. The distinctive whistle of Reeves' tactical signal, 3 short bursts. Thermal charges placed, building rigged. Sarah smiled in the darkness. You know what your problem is, Morrison. You think you know everything about me, every tactic, every strategy, but you forgot the most important thing. What's that? I don't follow tactics anymore. I make them up as I go. She grabbed the hostage, the GRU agent, and used her as a human shield, firing blind at Volkov's position while diving toward the nearest window. The warehouse exploded. Reeves' thermal charges detonated simultaneously, blowing out the support columns. The entire structure began to collapse, concrete and steel raining down. Sarah crashed through a window, hit the ground rolling, the GRU agent screaming beside her. Bullets chased her across the open ground. She fired back, saw Reeves and his team providing covering fire from behind an armored vehicle. Go, 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 Reeves shouted. Sarah ran, dragging the Russian agent, as the warehouse folded in on itself like a dying giant. Dust and debris billowed into the night sky. Behind her she heard Morrison's voice, distorted by the destruction but still recognizable. This changes nothing, Sarah. The truth is already out. Check your secure channels. It's already uploaded. Sarah reached the vehicle, threw herself inside. Reeves gunned the engine and they roared away from the collapsing warehouse. Did we get them? Hammer asked, checking their 6. No, Sarah said, pulling up her secure tablet. Morrison's right, look. The screen showed news alerts, social media explosions, leaked documents flooding the internet. The Kabul files, the emails, the operational orders, everything Morrison had promised was now public. And in the chaos of revelation, Morrison and Volkov had vanished once again. The armored vehicle screamed through Berlin's pre-dawn streets, sirens wailing in the distance as emergency services converged on the collapsed warehouse. Sarah's tablet lit up with notifications. Every intelligence agency in the Western world was now in crisis mode. The leaked Kabul documents were spreading like wildfire across the internet. CNN is running it, Frost said, monitoring news feeds. BBC, Al Jazeera, it's everywhere. Morrison actually did it. Sarah scrolled through the documents now public for the world to see. Emails from Deputy Director Marsh discussing acceptable casualty rates. Operational orders signed by Admiral Hendricks authorizing the Kabul mission, despite intelligence indicating a trap. Text messages between Senator Patterson and the White House Chief of Staff about leveraging the successful counterterrorism operation for the midterm elections. Her team hadn't died in the fog of war. They'd been sacrificed on the altar of political expediency. Jesus Christ, Reeves whispered, reading over her shoulder. This is going to tear apart half the intelligence community. Sarah's phone buzzed. Wade, she answered on speaker. Sarah, where are you? Wade's voice was tight, controlled, but Sarah could hear the barely contained panic underneath. Somewhere safe. Morrison and Volkov escaped before the warehouse came down. Forget Morrison. Forget Volkov. You need to disappear. Right now. The documents he released, they implicate people at the highest levels, people who will do anything to contain this. Director Marsh has already issued a classified order declaring you a rogue operative. They're saying you helped Morrison leak the files. That's insane. I've been trying to stop him. I know that, you know that, but they need a scapegoat and you're convenient. Former widow Mark operator present at every incident, no witnesses to contradict their narrative. Wade's voice dropped lower. Sarah, I'm telling you this because you saved my life in Mosul. You have maybe 6 hours before every intelligence agency on Earth is hunting you. After that, I can't protect you. Nobody can. The line went dead. Sarah looked at Reeves. You heard him. This just became a different kind of mission. You and your team should extract while you can. This is my problem now. Reeves didn't even hesitate. With respect, Captain, screw that. Rodriguez and Chen died on my watch. I don't run from the people who killed them. Hammer and Frost nodded agreement. Sarah felt something unfamiliar, gratitude mixed with the bone-deep loneliness of command. Then we need to go off-grid, completely. No agency contacts, no official channels. We're ghosts now. Where do we start? Frost asked. Sarah pulled up a map of Europe on her tablet. Morrison said the truth was already out, but he's wrong. What he released was the Kabul files, proof of that one operation. But there's more. Has to be. If they're willing to burn me to protect their secrets, that means there are bigger revelations Morrison hasn't leaked yet. Leverage, Reeves said, understanding dawning. He's holding back the worst stuff as insurance. Exactly, which means it's stored somewhere. Somewhere secure enough that even if he dies, it can still be released. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. During Widow Mark, we maintained dead drops across Europe, physical locations where intelligence could be stored off-network, old school, unhackable. You think Morrison is using the old Widow Mark infrastructure? He knows it better than anyone. He helped design half of it. Sarah zoomed in on a city she knew too well. Prague. We had 3 dead drops there. High-security storage facilities disguised as regular businesses. If Morrison has insurance files, that's where they'd be. Hammer checked his watch. That's a 12-hour drive. We could fly, but every airport in Europe will be watching for us by now. Then we drive, Sarah said, fast and quiet. They ditched the armored vehicle in a parking garage and stole a nondescript Volkswagen van, the kind of vehicle tourists used, invisible in its ordinariness. Reeves drove while Sarah worked her encrypted phone, reaching out to the one person who might still help them. Lighthouse, the deep-cover asset in Prague who'd been buried so long even the CIA had forgotten he existed. The phone rang 4 times before a cautious voice answered in Czech. Wrong number. Lighthouse, it's Widow Mark. I need a favor. A long pause. You're on every watch list in Europe. Helping you is suicide. I know, but Morrison has files, the real files. Everything he hasn't released yet. I think they're in Prague in one of our old drops. Another pause. If I help you, I burn 12 years of cover, everything I've built here. If you don't help me, Morrison releases whatever he's holding and hundreds of assets die. Maybe thousands, including you. She could hear Lighthouse breathing, the calculation happening in real time. Finally, there's a cafe in Old Town Square, Café Louvre. Meet me there in 14 hours. Come alone or I disappear forever. I'll be there. The line went dead. They crossed the German-Czech border at a rural checkpoint at dawn. The guards barely glanced at their forged Canadian passports. Reeves had contacts in places Sarah didn't ask about. Prague appeared on the horizon like a fairy tale city. Gothic spires, Baroque churches, the Vltava River winding through the heart of old Europe. Sarah had run operations here during Widow Mark's peak. Back when the program was about protecting Americans, not becoming collateral damage in bureaucratic power plays. Café Louvre was in the New Town district, an elegant pre-war establishment with marble tables and waiters in formal attire. Sarah entered alone, exactly as instructed. Reeves and his team were positioned outside, watching approaches, ready to extract her if this went sideways. Lighthouse sat in the back corner, a book of Czech poetry open in front of him. He'd aged well, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the comfortable appearance of a retired professor. No one would suspect he'd spent 12 years feeding intelligence to the Americans. Sarah sat down without being invited. "Thank you for meeting me." "Don't thank me yet." Lighthouse didn't look up from his book. "Half the Czech intelligence service is looking for you. The other half is pretending not to while secretly looking for you. You've become very popular very quickly." "Morrison's files, the ones he hasn't released, where are they?" "Assuming they exist, assuming he's actually using old widow mark infrastructure." Lighthouse turned a page. "There were 3 dead drops in Prague. One was compromised in 2019, Chinese intelligence. One was dismantled when the program shut down. That leaves the archive." Sarah's blood went cold. The archive had been the most secure widow mark facility in Europe, a former Cold War bunker beneath a legitimate rare book dealership. Climate-controlled, electromagnetically shielded, accessible only through biometric security that had been keyed to exactly 7 people. "Morrison would have access," Sarah said. "Morrison is dead officially. His biometrics were scrubbed from the system when he was declared KIA." Lighthouse finally looked at her. "But there's a problem. 2 days ago, someone accessed the archive. The dealer who runs the shop, one of ours, Deep Cover, said a man matching Morrison's description came in with a woman. Russian. They went down to the bunker for 3 hours." "Volkov." "Most likely, they left with nothing visible, but the dealer said the security system logged a data transfer, large files, uploaded to an encrypted server." Lighthouse closed his book. "Whatever Morrison is holding back, he's already moved it. The archive is empty." Sarah's mind raced. "Then why are we here? Why did you agree to meet me?" Lighthouse smiled thinly. "Because Morrison made a mistake. He's good, excellent, even, but he's still thinking like an American operator, linear, tactical. He uploaded his files and assumed that was the end of it." But the dealer who runs the archive is former Czechcent B, Communist-era secret police. Old school. He doesn't trust digital anything. Every person who accesses the facility gets recorded. Not on the security system that can be hacked, on an actual camera, film, hidden behind a false wall. Lighthouse slid an envelope across the table. "Morrison and his Russian friend, 3 hours of footage. I had it developed. You might find it interesting." Sarah opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Morrison entering the archive with a woman who was definitely Volkov. But there was a third person, a man Sarah didn't recognize. Older, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit. "Who is he?" Sarah asked. "That," Lighthouse said quietly, "is the question that will get you killed. Because I ran his face through every database I could access. Officially, he doesn't exist, but I have friends in places you don't want to know about. Friends who remember the Cold War. And they tell me that man is Dmitry Alexandrov, former KGB. Ran black operations in Western Europe for 20 years. Supposedly died in 1997. Car accident in Moscow." "Supposedly." "Supposedly," Lighthouse stood. "If Alexandrov is alive and working with Morrison and Volkov, this isn't about revenge for Kabul. This is something bigger, something that goes back decades. And you, Captain Chen, are standing in the middle of a war you don't even know is being fought." He walked away, leaving Sarah with the photographs and questions that spiraled into darker and darker possibilities. Outside, Reeves appeared at her elbow. "We've got a problem. Czech police just cordoned off the square. They're searching everyone." Sarah pocketed the photographs. "Then we find another way out, because this just became a lot more complicated." Prague police cordon tightened like a noose around Old Town Square. Sarah watched from the cafe window as uniformed officers checked identification, their movements coordinated and deliberate. This wasn't a random sweep. Someone had tipped them off. "Service exit," Reeves said quietly, nodding toward the back of the cafe. "Kitchen staff use it for deliveries. Leads to an alley that connects to Selitna Street." They moved quickly, slipping past startled waiters and cooks. The alley was narrow, cobblestones slick with morning rain. Sarah could hear police radios crackling behind them, voices shouting in check. The cordon was expanding. Hammer was waiting with the van 3 blocks away, engine running. They piled in just as police vehicles rounded the corner, lights flashing. "Go," Sarah commanded. Hammer floored it, the van's tires squealing as they shot down a side street. Prague's medieval layout, designed to confuse invading armies, now worked in their favor. Hammer navigated the labyrinth of one-way streets and narrow passages with the confidence of someone who'd memorized every route. 10 minutes later, they were across the river in the Smichov district, parked in an underground garage beneath a Soviet-era apartment block. Safe, for now. Sarah spread the photographs Lighthouse had given her across the van's floor. Morrison, Volkov, and the ghost, Dmitry Alexandrov, the KGB operative who'd supposedly died 25 years ago. "This doesn't make sense," Frost said, studying the images. "Why would a former KGB officer work with Morrison to expose American intelligence operations? The Russians would want that information buried just as much as we do. Mutual destruction." "Unless," Sarah said slowly, a terrible realization forming, "this isn't about exposing secrets. It's about controlling them." Reeves looked up sharply. "Blackmail." "Think about it. Morrison releases the Kabul files, enough to create chaos, destroy careers, prove he has legitimate intelligence. But he holds back the rest, the really damaging stuff. Then what?" "Then he auctions it," Reeves finished, "piece by piece, to whoever will pay or whoever he wants to destroy." Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered cautiously. Morrison's voice. "I see you met with Lighthouse. Old tradecraft, I'm almost impressed." "Where are you, David?" "Closer than you think. Did you enjoy the photographs? I left them for you deliberately. Wanted you to understand the scope of what's happening." "Alexandrov, he's pulling your strings, isn't he?" Morrison laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Nobody pulls my strings anymore, Sarah. That's the whole point. But Alexandrov understands something you don't. The Cold War never ended. It just went underground. And now, with the right leverage, we can rewrite the entire intelligence landscape. By destroying it. By forcing transparency. Every agency, every government, every dirty secret from the last 50 years. Imagine a world where intelligence services can't operate in darkness anymore, where lies have consequences." "That's insane. You'll start wars, get thousands killed." "Thousands are already dying because of the lies we tell. At least this way, we choose which lies get exposed." Morrison's voice softened. "Sarah, I'm offering you one last chance. Join us. Help decide which secrets deserve to burn and which ones deserve protection. You have the moral compass I've lost. We need that." Sarah looked at the faces of Reeves and his team. Good soldiers. Men who'd risked everything because they believed in something bigger than themselves. "No," she said, "I won't help you destroy everything we fought for." "Then you've chosen your side. I'm sorry it came to this." The line went dead. 2 seconds later, the garage exploded. The blast came from beneath the van, shaped charge military grade, designed to kill everyone inside. But Hammer had positioned them over a drainage grate, and the force of the explosion vented downward instead of up. The van flipped, throwing them against the walls, but the armor-plating Reeves had insisted on held. Sarah's ears rang. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. Beside her, Reeves was moving, checking his team. Hammer was unconscious but breathing. Frost had a compound fracture in his arm but was still holding his rifle. "Out," Reeves shouted. "Secondary charges could be." The second explosion proved him right. This one came from the garage entrance, collapsing the ramp, sealing them inside. Through the smoke and debris, figures appeared. 6 men in tactical gear, weapons raised, professional, coordinated, and leading them was Alexei Volkov. "Captain Chen," he called out, "Morrison wanted to give you a chance. I told him it was wasted effort, but he insisted. Now please drop your weapons and come out. This doesn't have to end with more death." Sarah checked her ammunition. One magazine left. Reeves and Frost were in similar shape. Hammer was out of the fight. 4 operators against 6 in a confined space with limited cover. The odds were terrible. Sarah smiled. "You know what Morrison never understood about me," she called back. "I don't quit just because the odds are bad." She kicked open the van's rear door and came out firing. The garage erupted in gunfire. Sarah moved on pure instinct, years of training taking over. She dropped 2 of Volkov's men in the first 3 seconds. Reeves took out another with a precise headshot. Frost, one-armed and bleeding, still managed to pin down the remaining 3. Volkov himself didn't fire. He watched, calculating, professional. When his last man fell, he simply nodded, a gesture of respect between equals, and threw a smoke grenade. The garage filled with thick white smoke. When it cleared, Volkov was gone. But he'd left something behind, a laptop, sitting on the hood of a burned-out car, screen open and displaying a video feed. Morrison's face appeared. "Sarah, if you're watching this, it means Volkov failed to bring you in peacefully. I'm genuinely sorry about that, but it's time you understood the full picture." The screen split, showing multiple locations. Sarah recognized them immediately: CIA safe houses, FBI field offices, NSA facilities, all marked with countdown timers. "These are dead drops," Morrison continued. "Physical locations where I've placed evidence, not digital files that can be deleted. Physical documentation, photographs, original classified memos. In 48 hours, these packages will be delivered to every major news organization in the world. Unless—" Sarah's blood ran cold. "Unless you help me find one person, the architect, the one who's been running shadow operations for 30 years, the one who ordered Kabul, the one who killed our team. Alexandrov knows who it is, but he won't tell me until I deliver something he wants." Morrison leaned closer to the camera. "He wants you, Sarah, alive, unharmed, delivered to a location I'll provide. Do that and I'll give you the architect's name. You can expose them, bring them to justice, or kill them yourself. I don't care which. But this is the only way the truth comes out. I'm giving you 12 hours to decide. After that, the documents go public and every intelligence operation in the Western world collapses. Your choice, Captain. Save yourself or save the system that betrayed you." The screen went black. Sarah stared at her reflection in the dead laptop. Behind her, Reeves approached, limping from the explosion. "It's a trap," he said. "Obviously. You walk into whatever location Morrison gives you and you disappear, probably tortured for information, then killed." "I know. But you're thinking about it anyway." Sarah didn't answer. She was thinking about her team in Kabul, about the email from Deputy Director Marsh discussing acceptable casualties, about Morrison's question, save yourself or save the system. What if the system didn't deserve saving? Her phone buzzed, a text message, just coordinates and a time. "Moscow, 24 hours. "Of course it's Moscow," Frost muttered, clutching his broken arm. "Why wouldn't it be Moscow?" Reeves looked at Sarah. "We can't go to Russia. That's suicide. We'd be on Volkov's home ground, no backup, no support. It's impossible." Sarah thought about the impossible missions she'd run during Widow Mark, the extractions that couldn't be done, the targets that couldn't be reached, the operations that succeeded because everyone said they were impossible. "Get Hammer to a hospital," she said quietly. "Then get yourselves to a NATO base. Request asylum. Tell them everything. Make sure the truth gets out even if I don't come back." "Sarah." "That's an order, Commander." Reeves held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. This was a one-way mission. Sarah Chen walked out of the burning garage into the Prague morning, heading toward Moscow and whatever waited there. Behind her, Reeves watched her go, then pulled out his encrypted phone. "This is DEVGRU Actual," he said when the line connected. "I need an emergency extraction and a direct line to the director. We have a broken arrow situation. Authorization code. Widow Mark Actual is going dark." The hunt was entering its final phase. And only one person would walk away alive. Part 8. Widow's Web Extended. The flight to Moscow was a patchwork of illegal border crossings and falsified documents. Sarah traveled through Poland on a forged German passport, then caught a cargo plane from Warsaw that asked no questions as long as the cash was good. She landed at a private airfield 40 kilometers outside Moscow as the sun was setting over the Russian capital. The coordinates Morrison had sent led to an abandoned Soviet-era research facility in the Khimki forest, the kind of place where Cold War scientists had done work nobody talked about. Sarah approached on foot, her remaining weapons concealed beneath a heavy coat. The winter air bit through her clothes, Moscow's legendary cold wrapping around her like a living thing. The facility was exactly what she'd expected: concrete brutalism, broken windows, walls covered in graffiti. But the fresh tire tracks in the snow told her it wasn't as abandoned as it appeared. She was 50 meters from the entrance when Morrison stepped out of the shadows. He looked terrible, gaunt, exhausted. Whatever righteousness had fueled him in Berlin was cracking now, revealing something darker underneath. "You came," he said, and Sarah heard genuine surprise in his voice. "I honestly didn't think you would. You gave me 12 hours to save thousands of intelligence assets. What choice did I have?" "There's always a choice, Sarah. That's what I learned in that Russian prison. Every day they gave me a choice: cooperate or suffer. And every day I chose suffering, until the day I didn't." He gestured toward the building. "They're waiting inside. Volkov, Alexandrov, they want to talk to you before the end." "Before they kill me, you mean?" Morrison's expression was unreadable. "I promised them you'd come voluntarily. That's all I promised. What happens next is up to you." He turned and walked into the facility. Sarah followed, her hand on her concealed weapon, knowing this was almost certainly the last decision she'd ever make. The interior had been transformed. The decay was still there, but someone had set up generators, lights, electronic equipment. In the center of the main hall, at a table that looked stolen from a university library, sat two men. Alexei Volkov, looking as composed and dangerous as ever, and Dmitry Alexandrov, the ghost from the photographs. Up close, Sarah could see he was older than the images suggested, late 60s, maybe 70. But his eyes were sharp, calculating, the eyes of a man who'd spent 50 years playing the longest game imaginable. "Captain Chen," Alexandrov said in perfect English, his accent barely noticeable. "Please sit. We have much to discuss and very little time." Sarah remained standing. "Morrison said you'd tell me who the architect is, the person who ordered the Kabul operation." "I will, but first you must understand why." Alexandrov gestured to a chair. "Please, this will take time, and I am an old man who prefers comfort." Sarah sat, but her hand never left her weapon. Alexandrov smiled as if he could see right through her coat to the gun beneath. "You think this is about revenge, about Morrison's anger over Kabul, but Kabul was just a trigger. The real story goes back 30 years. He pulled out a folder, actual paper, old-school tradecraft, and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs from the Cold War, young men in military uniforms, KGB officers, CIA operatives. 1991, Alexandrov said, the Soviet Union collapsed, but certain elements within both intelligence services saw an opportunity. What if the Cold War didn't end? What if it simply evolved? Instead of nations fighting, what if intelligence services themselves became the power? Sarah's blood went cold as understanding dawned. You created the architect. We created the concept, a coordinator, someone who could operate across national boundaries, who could manipulate both sides, who could ensure that intelligence agencies remained powerful regardless of which politicians held office. Alexandrov's smile was thin. The architect has been running shadow operations for 3 decades, creating conflicts to justify budgets, eliminating threats to the intelligence apparatus, ensuring that people like you, Captain, always have wars to fight. Morrison spoke from behind her. Kabul wasn't about terrorism or elections. It was about maintaining the threat, keeping the machine running. Our team died to justify next year's black budget. Sarah's mind reeled. That's insane. You're talking about a conspiracy spanning decades, multiple agencies, multiple countries. I'm talking about the truth, Alexandrov interrupted. And I can prove it. I have files, communications, financial records, everything you need to expose the architect and bring down the entire network. Why? Sarah demanded. Why would you expose this? You're part of it. Because I am dying. Alexandrov tapped his chest. Lung cancer, 6 months, perhaps less, and I find I have developed something I did not expect in my old age, a conscience. I helped build this monster. Perhaps before I die, I can help kill it. He slid another folder across the table. The architect's identity, their operations, everything, in exchange for one thing. What? Your testimony. You are a decorated officer, a hero. When you reveal this, people will believe you, but I need you to understand something first. Alexandrov's eyes hardened. When you expose the architect, you expose everything, every intelligence operation, every asset, every secret. The chaos Morrison threatened with his leaks will seem minor compared to what this will unleash. Nations will fall, alliances will shatter, thousands will die in the immediate aftermath. Sarah's hand trembled on her weapon. You're asking me to choose between truth and stability. I am asking you to choose what kind of world you want to live in. One built on comfortable lies, or one facing harsh truth. Volkov spoke for the first time. For what it's worth, Captain, I advised against this. The chaos serves no one, but Alexandrov was insistent, and Morrison. He glanced at Sarah's former XO. Morrison wants to burn it all down. Sarah looked at Morrison. Is this what you want, David? Total destruction. I want justice, Morrison said quietly. I want the people who killed our team to pay. If that means tearing down the entire system, then yes, that's exactly what I want. Sarah opened the folder Alexandrov had given her. Inside was a name, a face she recognized. Colonel Marcus Wade. Her handler, her mentor, the man who'd recruited her into Widow Mark, the man who'd reactivated her 3 days ago. No, she whispered. Wade he saved my life multiple times. And he sent your team to die in Kabul, Alexandrov said. The architect needed a successful operation for political purposes. Wade selected your team specifically because you were good enough to maybe succeed, but expendable enough that your deaths wouldn't create too many questions. The room spun. Sarah's entire world, everything she'd believed about her service, her sacrifice, her purpose, collapsed into a singularity of betrayal. I need proof, she managed. Alexandrov slid a USB drive across the table. Audio recordings. Wade discussing the Kabul operation with his handlers, selecting your team, calculating acceptable losses. It is all there. Sarah's hand closed around the drive. And if I take this, if I expose Wade, then you walk out of here alive, Alexandrov said. You have 48 hours to release the information before Morrison's dead drops activate. After that, the truth comes out anyway, but you will have had a chance to shape the narrative, to ensure some kind of controlled demolition rather than total collapse. And if I refuse? Volkov's hand moved to his weapon. Then you never leave this room. Sarah looked at the three men around her. Morrison, consumed by his need for vengeance. Alexandrov, dying and seeking redemption. Volkov, the professional killer waiting for the word to end her. She thought about Wade, about the missions they'd run together, about the lives they'd saved, about the trust she'd placed in him, about the team that died in Kabul. "I'll take the files," she said quietly. "But I do this my way. No more deaths. No more chaos than absolutely necessary. I expose Wade, but I control how it happens." Alexandrov nodded. "Acceptable, though I doubt you will be able to minimize the damage as much as you hope." Morrison stepped forward. "Sarah, I know this is hard, but it's the right thing, the only thing." Sarah stood, pocketing the USB drive. "Don't talk to me about right and wrong, David. You've killed innocent people. You've destroyed lives. Whatever Wade did, whatever the architect's crimes, you're no better than them." "Maybe not," Morrison agreed, "but at least I'm honest about what I am." Sarah walked toward the exit, half expecting a bullet in her back, but Volkov didn't fire. Alexandrov didn't move. Morrison just watched her go, his expression unreadable. She was at the door when Alexandrov spoke one last time. "Captain Chen, one more thing. Wade is expecting you. He knows you are here. He knows about this meeting. Everything you think you control, he has anticipated." Sarah turned. "Then why let me leave?" "Because even the architect cannot control everything, and because I am curious to see which of you is more clever, the student or the teacher." Sarah emerged into the Moscow night, the USB drive burning in her pocket like a live coal. She had 48 hours to expose the man who'd shaped her entire career, the man who'd sent her team to die, the man who was probably 3 steps ahead of her even now. Her encrypted phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "I know what you're carrying. I know what you think you know. Come home, Sarah. Let's talk about this like civilized people. Or don't and watch as I destroy everything you've ever cared about. Your choice. Wade." Sarah deleted the message and started walking. Moscow stretched out before her, a city of 20 million souls, any one of whom might be working for the architect. She had 48 hours to get to Washington, expose Wade, and somehow prevent the total collapse of Western intelligence. 48 hours to finish what she'd started. 48 hours to either save the world or burn it down. The end game had begun, and Sarah Chen was done playing by anyone's rules but her own.